Hi, I'm Samuel Prather, Reason user since 2003 and founder of Go Entertainment. Welcome to A Reason to Create. I don't know if you noticed the difference in the scenery, but because of COVID-19 and having the kids at home and not really having my sacred space to shoot with them awake, I've had to kind of change things around so that I can shoot while the kids are up. So this is my kind of test space. Let me know what you think in the comments about it. Do you like the new scenery or do you prefer the old? And also, I have been getting a lot of comments about the music in the background, so I am trying to kind of figure out a format to make everybody happy with that. Today, what I wanted to do was just take a second to go into, again, blocks. By the way, if you didn't see my last video that I did on why you should be using blocks, check this one out. Before you watch this one, or maybe after, you don't need that video to understand this one, but definitely it'll help fill in some gaps. But in this video, what I wanted to do was show you a whole new way to use blocks in Reason that I hadn't used before, which blew my mind in terms of how well it works. Recently, due to COVID-19, I have a lot of recording gigs where people are pre-taping things for live stream at a later date. And so I've been doing a lot of recording and a lot of mixing. A lot of people will use Pro Tools or Logic, maybe even Tracks Live for something like that, just to use a DAW that's really designed specifically for long format recording. And so a lot of times, you know, we kind of skip over Reason for that functionality. I wanted to tell you about a couple reasons why you might want to throw Reason back in the ring in terms of which DAW to use when you're doing a long format recording. What if I told you that if you had the same setup every night, you could use one Reason file and record up to 32 different shows with at least theoretically an unlimited length? You could then use that template to start out mixing, if not completely mix the same way for each show. I'll show you how I do that in a second. If you're not familiar with blocks, how you get to blocks is you go to the options menu. All the way down at the bottom is enable blocks. Once you've enabled blocks, then you can hit B to toggle back and forth between block mode and song mode. I'm not a huge fan that they just tucked it away in the menu because it's such a valuable tool, and I guess they probably did that because they thought that people aren't using it, but hopefully they'll see videos like this and see that blocks is an extremely versatile tool and that it should just be left there from the get-go, not something you have to go and dig for. Okay, so once I get into block mode, it doesn't look like anything special happened, but something very special has happened. I've accessed one of 32 individual nameable timelines that I can use within the same Reason file. There's no limit to how long I can record for. I'm assuming this is obviously based on having a computer that can handle it and plenty of memory. But in theory, this can record just as long as any other DAW that you have on your computer. You might be asking, why do I even care? I don't need 32 timelines to do anything. Well, there's a couple situations where that might help you out. One, if you have a situation where you're going to be touring with a band and recording them every night, and you just want to be able to use the same inputs, but keep everything in one file. The other thing is if you have a template that you make for dealing with funk bands, for example, or jazz bands, you can start out mixing with everything in place and just kind of drag and drop the waves where they need to be or record them where they need to be, and everything will just be perfect from the start. This is a band called DC High Life that I did a recording for, and I'm not going to play the music. I just want you to see what's going on in the timeline. So you see we have my kick, snare, tom, floor tom, all the stuff is labeled and everything is being bussed to where it needs to be bussed. I have all the instruments that are going to be kind of ducking underneath of my kick and snare and lead vocal going to my ducking channel, and I have all the percussion going to the percussion bus and vocals going to a vocal bus, etc., etc. So this is a pretty complex setup, and on each of these things I've set up EQs and I've set up compression, etc., etc. These are things that take a little while to set up, especially when you're doing it on this many tracks. And it's a big help to be able to just start out with all this stuff in place. Now, it's easy to turn something off if you don't need it, but having it there saves you a ton of time. Maybe you're doing a recording at your church where the mic settings and all the inputs are going to be relatively similar from week to week. This would be a great way to keep things organized and then also only have to deal with minute changes in your mix instead of having to start from scratch every week. Pro Tools and other DAWs have a functionality where you can copy the settings, right? You can copy all the session data from one session to another session, and that's very helpful. This is very similar to that, except for you don't even have to copy it to another session. I'm gonna move to another session right now. Watch, this is how you do it. Bow. That quick. And all my inputs are the same, and all the mixing and compression data and everything is just sitting right there intact because nothing moved. And this is an enormous advantage if you know how to take advantage of it. So in theory, if I had a good mix from the last session that we did, all I have to do is drag my audio files from another DAW, if I recorded in another DAW, into their place, or I can just record these in the place that they are, and I will be right as rain. I will say that I haven't, and I wouldn't recommend recording in the same session because there's a lot of processing happening here. So it would probably be a better idea to record in a clean session with nothing else going on and then importing audio into Reason. Reason hasn't crashed on me doing a long format recording, knock on wood, but I wouldn't, try it on an important recording and, have a whole bunch of effects and stuff happening in your recording channels. Maybe if they're bypassed, but that's something that you can experiment with me. Please do so in the comments. Let me know if you've been able to record like a big 32 track session and leave all the processing stuff in place and not have a problem. I wouldn't recommend it, and I probably wouldn't recommend it with Pro Tools or any other DAW either for that matter. The bottom line is that at some point your computer might tell you that it's too much, and it will probably be in the middle of the session. So just to be on the safe side, record it in a clean session and then move it over to another template where you have things already ready to be mastered and mapped out. By using this template, what I've been able to do was be able to cut my mixing time more than in half. I've been able to do a mix for a 32 channel session in less than an hour, because when I start with everything imported into the session, it's already very close to where it needs to be. So the things that you still have to do and should do, just not to be lazy, is you should go through with the EQs and scrub, because every recording might be a little bit different. A few things that you should probably do again anyway, even though you have a great template, are you should go through and scrub your EQs just to make sure that there aren't any nasty frequencies that have changed because of mic placement maybe, or different microphone, etc., etc. Also things like gates on the kick drum or the snare drum, and make sure that those are tuned so that they're not taking out too much of the sound of the kick when you change from one drum to another. Also things like the low cut. These are things that you just basically have to go back through on each channel and check to make sure that it still fits as well for the current file that you're working on that it did for the one before. But I promise you that's a lot faster than starting from scratch on every instrument and putting in a compressor for each one, putting on an EQ for each one, bussing all the things that need to be bussed together so that they can be side chained, etc., etc. All that stuff takes a lot of time. And if you're able to do this, then you can do mixes that are really consistent, and you'll be able to do them a ton faster than you would if you were doing them from scratch. What might you use this for? I think it has a ton of applications. I mean, the ones that I think about immediately are, if you're recording in the same location and have the same input list, then this is a great idea. If you are doing an album, a live album for a band that maybe they're keeping the same instrumentation, or at least close to the same instrumentation from tune to tune, this is a great way to keep a consistent kind of mix and master consistent through the album. This is also really great if you're doing a lot of recording for similar different kinds of bands, and you might have to do more tweaks to get things perfect, but it'll give you a probably 2-hour head start, to be honest, on just getting a band where they need to be. Now, there's one really annoying drawback that I have to address so that you don't get mad at me. One is that this little bar down here, Reason clearly is designed for shorter files, because this performance here was roughly about an hour long, and I can't zoom out any more than this. So I can't fit a whole hour performance in my timeline. This is the highest resolution that it will allow. But other than that, this has really been an amazing time saver for me. If you're somebody who's used to Reason and getting their sound out in Reason and knows their way around, then this will help you be able to use Reason for long format recordings. So if things like church services or maybe live streams of your band are things that you are going to start getting into, know that you can do it in Reason, and you can do it really effectively with all the effects that you know and love and that are right there available in your rack. Did you already know you could use blocks to do this in Reason? Have you already been doing this, or is this a revelation to you? If it is news to you, then by all means hit the like and subscribe button, click the bell so you know when I'm coming out with new content, and hopefully you'll also check out my web store and grab yourself a Go t-shirt or maybe some of my music to help support me. I'm an independent artist, and any purchases that you make are appreciated. I'm Samuel Prather. Hopefully today I gave you a reason to create.